Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 2. I'm here with my buddy Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hello, everyone.
Everybody's favorite after last week's review.
Yeah, I'm the cynical one that's ruining Steve.
Yeah, you're such a bad influence. So this was Episode 2 of Season 3, Disengage. And if you forgot, they said either engage or disengage approximately 15,000 times during the episode.
I don't remember them ever saying disengage in TNG.
I think they said disengage once, and they kept saying engage like over and over and over again.
Okay.
But anyway, so, okay, here, if I could give a one-sentence review to this episode, it would be this. Thank God for Amanda Plummer.
Oh, good golly.
Because, boy, you want to talk about someone making the most of a role of, a limited number of scenes. She is the saving grace of this episode and then some. She is so terrific.
She is getting up there. So there are two types of villains that I love in Star Trek. One are the very deep and complex ones like Gul Dukat.
Right.
And then there are the overtop ones like Khan and General Kang, and boy, oh boy, she was great. She was fucking great.
She is delightfully hammy.
Yeah. The best part of it is, if you guys haven't seen the show, please do that, because there's going to be spoilers in this, right?
Oh yes.
And we're going to try to keep this at about a half hour instead.
I'm aiming for half an hour. Yeah, I'm aiming for half an hour.
But when they go through the rigmarole, and then Picard kind of takes over the ship, and they shoot her ship and get away into the nebula. She doesn't scream, "Get them," or anything like that. She laughs.
Yes, excitedly, like
excitedly,
like
oh
like,
boy,
they're gonna.
I get to chase and shoot at them some more, which is just. She was great. She was great.
She was, like I said, she was. She was the.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say she was the first, and I know you were when we got her first scene where she actually has dialogue. You said, "Oh no,"
and I didn't mean "oh no" in a bad way. I meant "oh no." I think I like this character a lot,
because that was the first indication to me that this episode is a big improvement over the last one. It still has its problems. And I think most of the problems I had with this episode are problems that I think I'm probably just going to have with the entire series. It's just not going to be able to get away from certain issues. But this episode was a great improvement over last week's.
It was Easter egg free as near as I could tell. There was no, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. There was no draggy
reused music cues. Except for Worf getting the Klingon theme when he pops up.
But he's Worf. They really needed to come up with a Worf theme on his own
instead of just giving him the Jerry Goldsmith.
How many years of Star Trek did he do as Worf, and they never gave him an official theme? But no Easter eggs. We got things confirmed, like immediately, right? We still not, we now know who this mystery ship was after, why they're apparently after them. We've confirmed that I don't know his name. Jack is Picard's kid.
Yes.
We didn't have to wait 4 episodes for Crusher to come out of her little sleep tube. So she got up. And I will say this. Thank you for the goddamn restraint on the script. Thank you for having the reveal between Beverly and Jean-Luc not be dialogue.
Have just a moment between them, yeah.
Exactly.
A moment of understanding.
Yeah. That sold. That was great. And there were
that was very good.
And there was a lot of intentionally humorous parts that I laughed out loud at. Steve didn't, because believe it or not, I'm not the cynic. Steve is the cynic. No, I'm.
You really enjoyed you enjoyed the Ferengi guy, Sneed.
I love.
And I did too. I thought
love
Sneed was good
Ferengis.
too. Yeah.
I love Ferengis, and it's good to see a good villain Ferengi.
Yeah.
Not conflicted about what he's doing. He's just a bad guy.
He's just a bastard, and he's completely fine with that. Yeah.
Me personally, if I had killed someone who knew something about me, I wouldn't keep their head around me, because then if I got arrested, they'll be like, "Why did you keep the dude's head?" And
why was his head right behind your couch?
Right. But it was good that he was good and evil. I'm not a fan of the Rafi character. The less time we spend with Rafi, the better. I mean, we kind of all know her foibles, that she's addicted to drugs, that she's not close to her granddaughter. I did appreciate the dialogue between her and her husband about, apparently she's been this way forever, and it drove a wedge between them, and then she makes a bad decision where she has to decide between, her pursuit of her not really her career really, but this mystery about who's behind the attacks. But we were right about Worf, right? That Worf turned out
again,
to be your handler.
I'm glad that the show didn't drag that reveal out any longer.
Yeah, I'm glad that he was there. Second episode, it was great to see Worf again,
because it was obvious.
We both commented that Michael Dorn does not seem to age. They could have easily just put him in the same hair and the same dark hair and everything else. He probably would look exactly like Worf.
Yeah, it makes it feel like, because Michael Dorn himself still looks, relatively the same age that he looked when he was doing Deep Space Nine, over almost 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It really makes their decision to give Worf all white hair seem like even more overkill on the makeup. It's like, you don't need to give him. I mean, it's not that he looks bad necessarily, but it's like, why?
He looks older.
Why is his hair dead white?
He looks older than Core. And
they were like 100 and something years old.
Oh yeah, they're long lived. But he still looks good. I mean,
he does. It's
very striking.
Yeah,
and we get to see him kill some dudes, which is
I just made a video last week. I said I love it when Worf kills people.
Because
he kills a whole bunch of people. He kills a whole bunch of people, so I can't complain about that. I think you said that none of it drags. I did think that the Raffi stuff dragged. I mean,
that's what I mean. The Raffi stuff kind of dragged, but the rest of it was like well done, well paced.
Yeah, there are some good.
I like the acknowledgement. I like that Riker is not necessarily pestering Picard, but he's like, he's your son. Are you even going to talk about this right now? Because I can see that he's your son, because I think he does. He's about the right age. He's your son. Just say it. And Picard's like,
he has your accent.
Nope. Yeah, he has. Somehow he inherited your accent. I'm sure they'll come up with a hand wavy explanation.
No, it's because I'm telling you, it's because he grew up listening to those old captain's logs.
That can't be it.
Think of the dumbest reason.
Dude, I grew up watching Monty Python.
Yes, but you are not a character in this show.
Okay, whatever.
I'm just saying, but no, Riker was sort of like the voice of the audience there. Riker was the one to be like, come on, dude, just say it. We all know he's your kid. Just say it. And I feel like they came just that close to overdoing it with that, because like, I think because they wanted to drag it out and have it come at the end of the episode so it would be more dramatic, but also they had to know, like, everybody is already guessing that this dude is Picard's kid, right? This isn't going to be like a big shock. So they have to introduce the idea early so that it doesn't come across like they're expecting us to be surprised, because that wouldn't play, because obviously we're not going to be surprised because we've all gotten there ahead of time. So they have to sort of deflate it early to avoid that. And I think they end up doing
the thing. At least it came in the second episode. Right? Yes. They didn't drag it out for a huge amount of time. Now, if they could easily fuck that up later in the season by doing something dumb, but I don't know. This episode felt so much different than the first one, which kind of got bogged down with a whole bunch of stuff. And in this one, we get to see, one of my major complaints has been we don't really get to see our Starfleet characters think their way out of problems or be competent at what they do. And in this one, you have Jean-Luc running around putting up the transporter inhibitors. No one's asked him to do it. He's just doing it because he's thinking ahead.
Because he's
thinking
smart.
ahead because he's been around. How long had he been in Starfleet for that long?
Right.
And he's like, Matt, well, we better get this set up, and he sets it up. And there was a little Dumbo when they're trying to transport them over to the Titan, and all of them have forgotten. But I'm willing to forgive
all of them have forgotten.
I'm willing to forgive that because they're being shot at, and there's a big spooky spaceship outside, and But as soon as they realize it, we don't have a scene where they all try to run around and turn him off. He just shoots them.
Yeah.
So I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So honestly, most of the stuff with Picard and Riker and Jack was pretty well done. Mm-hmm. That was I mean, it was whenever the episode would cut to the Raffi story where I'd be like, oh Jesus, let's just get on with this. Mm-hmm. We all know where this is going. Let's just get there.
I watched this. I didn't roll my eyes once.
No.
I didn't. I wasn't like, I was pleasantly surprised with the plot revelations coming this early and this quickly, and how it was done.
Yes,
and you definitely give me a great big over the top villain, and you give me some Worf, and I hope we get more because Worf is one of my favorite characters in Star Trek.
Same here. I love Worf. Worf.
And I hope we get more of them. Later on. They put it in the trailer that he's a pacifist. He's a weird pacifist, if that's
not so far.
But I'm sure he's worked it into his credo. I've never thought of Worf as being like, unstrung and constantly violent, right?
No, he only kills people when he has a reason to.
Sure.
But the thing is, when he has a reason to, he'll fucking kill you.
He only needs to, he only beats up people if he can take away their knife, dishonor them to get someone to come talk to him.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, no, I thought it was such a big improvement over the first episode that it makes the first episode seem even worse in retrospect, because it's like if they had this one, sort of like in the dugout, like what possible excuse is there for making the first episode that rotten? Mm-hmm. But really, I mean, like you said, almost all of the stuff, not all of it, but almost all of the stuff that made the first episode so bad is completely absent here. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem nearly as pandering. It doesn't seem nearly as desperate to just remind you of old Star Trek stuff at the expense of whatever story it's trying to tell.
Sure.
It moves relatively well, especially compared to previous seasons of this show. It moves the larger story forward much further than it would have been in season 2. Or season 1 even of Picard. So, I mean, these are all very encouraging things.
Mm-hmm. I'm starting to really like Jack.
Jack is a good, character. Yeah, actually, and that's another thing you said when we were watching it. You said, what if this is the only character we end up liking in this show?
No, because he does keep going. Everything will be fine, I think.
He does
going this way, yeah.
He seems likable, and his first scene, which is a flashback to 2 weeks before
which we kind of groaned
episode.
About when we first saw it 2 weeks prior, but it was a good scene.
It was a good scene, and I said after it was over, I said that should have been the first scene of the first episode. Introduce us to a guy who we don't quite know who he is yet, but he's attempting to do something that seems kind of good, but also he's like a fast talker and, kind of a wheeling and dealing kind of guy.
He bribed them with guns so that he could get medicine to people.
Right.
So he's a good guy that does quote unquote illegal things.
Right.
For the greater good. Pardon me. But let's talk about the thing that surprised both of us.
Oh, yes.
Because at some point I turned to you and they said, holy shit, are they having is the central plot of this episode that they have a moral crisis about whether it's right or not to turn someone over to hostile people?
Who told them they could do that?
And it was like, because I didn't expect it. You have, Captain Jerk, whatever his name is. I can't remember his name.
Shaw.
Yeah. Captain Shaw, who has a legitimate position. He said, if saving all of my crew members means giving him up, then we're giving him up. He's not. I turned to you and I said, remember what Spock taught us?
Yep.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And this is literally that setup where Shaw is like, just give him over to him so that we don't wind up getting blown up. And Picard and Riker are on the side of, he's a person. They should have mentioned. I don't know if he's a Federation citizen, but like, they're a person. We don't give in to hostile demands. They literally have this, what used to be the core of TNG, which was not super space adventures, or it was a moral quandary. Right. It was, shit, we've gotten ourselves into this position. Is this right or is this wrong? And that was in the center of this. Is it right or is it wrong to turn him over? And I appreciated that. That's something that I didn't expect. We haven't been getting it from Picard.
Not from Picard at all, no. Well, and what I liked about it, especially, and I agree with what you just said, and also it was nice that the asshole captain got a little bit more dimension to him, because again, I cannot stress enough how one-dimensional that character was in the first episode. Like he was literally just, this guy's an asshole. He doesn't like jazz. He doesn't like wine. You know what I mean? It's like he's just an asshole. And in this episode, they give him a position where it's like you can kind of see where he's coming from. Like his position makes sense. And the decisions he's making and the way that he's reacting to Picard and Riker, it's like you can kind of, even if you may not agree with him yourself, you're like, well, he's making decisions that make sense from the perspective of a captain who wants to protect his crew and who is in this situation that he didn't want to be in. Like he said, like, I'm not taking the ship here. And then they took the ship there anyway. And now he's stuck. And he's like, hey, let's just turn the guy over and get out of here. Screw this. This is not my problem. Yeah. And you can kind of see where he's coming from. And I appreciated that. Yeah.
So did I.
Yeah.
And also just a little throwaway line from the bad guy, from Amanda Plummer, where she seems to know everything about everybody. In that opening bit when they first talking to her, and she's
talking to Shaw about like his Starfleet records.
He has a psychological profile that may have prevented him from becoming a captain. So, maybe that will be expanded on later on. But I just like a good villain that knows everything about everyone, and
who is having a good time.
Oh yeah,
who's having a good time. Yeah,
she brings up the fact that Jean-Luc has a synthetic body. The thing that no one likes to talk about.
Yeah.
Right.
Because ultimately it doesn't make any difference.
No, not really.
It's a decision they made. It's literally like the end of the episode of The Simpsons where the real Principal Skinner shows up. And then the end of the episode,
pretend that
at the end of the episode, they're like, and I declare that nothing will be any different. And it's like, okay, so why? It's like and they were making a joke with Picard as the robot. It's like, oh yeah, he's a robot now, but other than that, he's literally exactly the same. So nothing has to change. It's like, okay, so why do that? Like, why do that at all? But yeah, it's nice that they are reminding us that, he's a robot. Yeah, like I said, a big improvement over last week and a very encouraging episode.
There's only one thing that we kind of brought it up while we were watching it, was why isn't 7 the spy?
Yes, 7 really. And it feels like 7 should have Raffi's story.
Why isn't Raffi the commander?
Yes, swap 7 and Raffi.
Because if they've done anything in the last 2 years of Picard, they've established that Raffi and Picard are friends, and they've known each other for a long time. So Raffi doing just about anything to help Picard makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Whereas Seven and Picard, they don't seem to have that kind of history. They mention it offhand. You recommended me to Starfleet. Now she's a commander. They
Right.
mentioned that in the last episode. But a reversal would probably make a little bit more sense. Except I have a sneaking suspicion that Seven is very recognizable. Right?
Oh, so she might not be as good of a spy.
Because she was what? A ranger?
She was a Fenris Ranger.
A Fenris Ranger, exactly. And she went around killing people. So
which would make her a great partner for Worf.
Yeah.
They could be, they could be the kill buddies.
But I mean, it doesn't destroy the show. And, it's kind of like one of those writing curiosities where you sit down and you go, why?
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Why did they do it this way when they could have done it that way? But it doesn't, destroy the episode.
No, it doesn't wreck the show. Like I said, the non-Raffi stuff is good enough that, every time we cut back to Raffi, it's just like, all right, let's just get through whatever this is, mm-hmm. and by the end of the episode, it's like, okay, there's Worf. So hopefully this will be okay.
I really hope they don't have Raffi in the show just to kill her later
on. Oh no.
In the season.
I hope whatever here's my fear. Again, very encouraging episode, big improvement
mm-hmm.
over last week.
Mm-hmm.
My fear is that we've had now 2 episodes where the ship with Picard and Riker has been hanging around outside of that nebula. Now we're going to get at least 1 episode where they're inside the nebula mm-hmm. with Amanda Plummer chasing them. So that's not a huge amount of, plot forward momentum. But at least they're moving from outside to inside. At least there's some movement.
Well, if they are in the nebula, they may not be fighting the entire time.
I hope not.
It may be like another cat and mouse thing, but hopefully it'll give enough time, because Beverly did not have a single line in this episode, which I'm not
right
complaining about. I'm not.
No, that wasn't a problem. That wasn't a problem.
Because they could have handled that whole "no, Jean-Luc, he's your son" and all that. Instead, it was subtle. It was explained to the audience and to each other through just the way they looked at each other. Yeah. Subtle, wonderful direction in writing to get something across as a reveal, which in the past would have been "he's your son" or something like that.
Right, like as he's being beamed away. Jean-Luc, he's your son.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully they'll get a chance to talk. We'll be able to develop some stuff. I'm not going to mind the Raffi scenes if Worf is there. I'm not going to mind
people.
Yeah, well, I don't need him to be constantly killing people.
I need him to be constantly killing people. The only thing I was going to say about the Raffi and Worf story is I hope that they link it up to mm-hmm. the Picard story like as soon as possible.
No way that they're
I mean, probably not next episode, but just based on the pace that things are proceeding at so far, I wouldn't expect it to be in the next episode. But like episode 4, like it's going to have to link up somewhere at some point. We're not just going to see
that this is end to end, right? That we got up to this point in episode 1. We mm-hmm. picked it right back up at that same point in episode 2. Mm-hmm. I would imagine they're not going to say 3 weeks later and they're still in the nebula.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's probably going to be, they're going to mm-hmm. pick it right back up. Yeah, that's what I would expect. Yeah.
And hopefully some more great scenes with the villain, which, what is her name? We don't know.
I think it's Vadic.
Is it
They said Vadic, yeah.
Vadic, okay. And the ship is the Shrike.
The Shrike, which they gave her an extra scene just so she could tell us.
I don't mind.
It was fine. She did a good job with it. It was a pointless exposition scene, but she did a good job with it.
Being evil for the whole episode, I don't care.
So, a couple of things that I want to mention in the negative column. Really, only one big thing in the negative column.
Okay,
and it's a thing that was also true of, like I said, of the previous episode, and I fear will just be true of the entire series. And that is that it looks like shit.
It's still dark.
It looks like shit. And there was those scenes with Amanda Plummer where she is just absolutely killing it, playing this great hammy villain. And there are a couple of those shots where you can barely see her. And I'm like, this woman is giving this awesome over the top supervillain performance, chewing all the scenery, and we can barely see her. Light this woman, please. Let me see her giving this performance. This is ridiculous.
I would like to see the palette change. I really would.
Yeah.
Because it's always nighttime on Blade Runner planet.
Oh God,
as near as I can tell. The only time that we see anything bright is when we're in space, which is weird. When we're outside of the planet, when someone's in orbit around a planet, or when they're right next to this brightly lit nebula. But the rest of the time, everything is kind of dark. I kind of wish that they would lighten, that we could get out of this dark palette. Maybe they will. I mean, they surprised us with this one.
I hope so, because like we talked about last time, I mean, Strange New Worlds does not have this problem. Strange New Worlds is a good looking show. Discovery is a good looking show. So it doesn't need to be. It is. Like I said, whether you like it as far as the stories and the writing or not, it's always been a great looking show. And I mean, there's no excuse for Picard to always look this bad. And now really based on this episode, if the rest of the season continues to go in this direction, and correct, for the shortcomings of the first episode, the only major problem that I'm going to have with it is that it looks like shit. And there's no reason for it to look this bad, because the other shows in the franchise right now don't look this bad.
It is a little too dark for my taste, but it didn't take away from the storytelling. I just wish their palette, and this is just a design thing, was not constantly dark. I would appreciate something, lighter toned. Someone on board the Titan goes, "Oh, there's the light switch," and they just turn it on.
Yeah, exactly. Computer lights, and like, oh, right.
What is your other nitpick, Steve?
I don't think there's not another major one that I can think of.
Me either.
I liked the subtle adjustment that they made to the Ferengi makeup. You can tell it's a little different than it was back in the day.
Well, I mean, everything's advanced as far as makeup goes.
I like that. Apparently, I don't know if it's if just the rubber teeth are different, or if they just allowed this actor to overdub his lines or what. But I like that you can tell that the actor wasn't struggling to talk around the teeth as much as poor Armin Shimmerman had to do back in Deep Space Nine. So that was nice. So this is good. We both liked the episode.
Yeah, and we hope it continues this way.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we wrap up, I had planned for us to respond to some comments on our last review, but honestly, a lot of the comments I had picked out for us to respond to were about stuff that was wrong with the first episode, and I feel like the vibe is a little positive now, so I don't want to drag us back to the negativity of the.
Why do you always want to drag everything down? You gloomy cloud of.
But there is one comment. There is one comment that I had picked out that I think is appropriate for us to respond to. That is a good point at which I think to start wrapping it up, which is,
all right.
And this is from Listening to Movies 553. And this is on our review of episode 1. And they say, I hope you guys feel vindicated as episode 2 turned out exactly as you predicted. Referring, of course, to Worf being Raffi's handler.
Oh, sure.
And Jack being Picard's kid.
Here's the thing. We predicted it. My biggest problem with it being that the handler being Worf was not that the handler was Worf. That was a guess based on the tone of the messages that she was getting. It was my fear that we wouldn't get that reveal until deeper into the series. That it would come as a reveal as episode 4, episode 5. And that's when we get to find out it's Worf. I'm happy that they didn't drag that out and that we got it in episode 2. As far as it being, and I will say this, as far as Jack being Picard's son, they did kind of hint at it through the entire second episode, where we threw out the idea that Jack is a clone of Jack Crusher.
Of Jack Crusher, yeah.
And the way that they were referring, because Riker never came out and said, you have to admit he's your son. He kept saying, are you seeing what I am seeing?
Right.
which easily could have been interpreted as she just fucking cloned her dead husband.
He looks exactly like Jack Crusher.
Are we going to talk about this? Why did she clone her dead husband? Now, with the reveal at the end of the episode, we now have confirmation that it's, his son. And I'm glad we got that out of the way. And I'm not like, I guessed it. It was more about how that would be revealed. Yeah. And if we had been wrong, I would have been surprised. I would have been like, oh, that's a new direction to go in. That Beverly's gone nuts and cloned her dead husband, but I mean, how do you feel about it?
I think, the biggest prediction that I had for this episode was that it was going to be lousy. And that prediction was wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that prediction was wrong.
Me too.
So to me, like the prediction of, well, that guy's obviously Picard's son and her handler's obviously Worf. Like, honestly, like I would have been shocked if either of those things had not turned out to be the case, because it's just like, that's just obviously what it was going to be. Based on this show, based on what this show is, based on what I think the ethos behind this show is, like there's no way that wasn't going to be Worf. There's no way that Jack wasn't going to be Picard's kid. Just that would have genuinely surprised me if either of those two had not come true. So it's not like we were just clairvoyant or we have some special insight into. It's like, no, that was obvious. Yeah. The most important thing is that it was a good episode, which I did not see coming. And I am very glad that it was.
And it went by at a clip too. It just went.
Yeah, well,
you said the rappy parts were draggy. I didn't find them terribly draggy.
It was about 10 minutes. It was about 10 minutes shorter than the first episode, which again is a good thing.
I didn't. I felt that when it went by quickly, it was very well paced. So I'm not.
It was much better paced than that first episode, and it was not cluttered with a lot of shit that didn't need to be there, and it focused on its characters and on its plot beats and that was there was a moment Riker had a line and you said that's a Riker line.
Oh, it was, I don't like being on my back foot.
Yeah, there's no place in the universe. Yeah, there's no place on the universe I want to be less than on my back foot or something like that. And it's like, okay, that sounds like a Riker.
And that's a Riker line.
Frakes was good in episode 1 too, though. I mean, I think we both said that. I don't know if people who watched our first episode
didn't see. From the comments, not a lot.
They were like, they're being so mean. They're being so mean to it.
Stuck around long enough to hear the hero say the positive things that we liked about the show,
but we both thought Frakes was good in episode 1, and he was good, and there was less of him in this episode because there was other stuff going on, but he was good in this episode as well.
Yes,
and overall, a huge improvement over episode 1. So hopefully that continues.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
There you go.
All right.
Although I will say, engage is not what you say when you shoot torpedoes.
Oh my God. I'm going to agree. Traditionally, you say fire, but they were engaging their engines and firing at the same time.
Yes, I know. And just to be clear for anybody who does, I'm not serious. I don't give a shit. I'm not actually holding that against the episode. I'm just saying. But
I've just been noticing that this green screen has been cutting out most of my body.
Sometimes you're just like a head.
Yeah. And when I'm just ahead, I feel like that alien in the Nth Degree. That
Nagilum.
Oh, interrogative.
Oh no, not Nagilum. Yeah, the guy. Yeah, the Cytherians. The Cytherians. Yeah,
that's right. Cytherians.
Yeah. The dudes that Barclay reconfigures the ship to go and meet.
One of my favorite TNG episodes ever.
It's a really good episode.
Anyway, we can't start talking about TNG. This will be another hour and a half show.
Bottom line, good second episode. Looking forward to episode 3. So
yeah,
there we go. And we'll be back next week to review episode 3. So thanks for watching, everybody.
Okay, thanks, guys.